Welcome to Inner Voice of Knowing podcast. I'm Kaye, a shamanic leadership coach and healer, guiding you through life with a foot in both worlds. When you understand the terrain of the inner landscapes, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic, you will become the leader within your physical life, both personally and professionally. After all, the power of change is in your hands. Let's get this journey started. Welcome to another episode of Inner Voice of Knowing. I'm really excited to have a beautiful human being and a gorgeous looking woman here with me who I met actually through one of the other guests, Kath Sutherland. You did your brand Blueprint and we instantly connected. And the reason I've invited Jill on, whose business is Heart Strategy, is because her story really fits with last week's episode. So I really wanted Jill to come on and talk about the journey that you've taken from leaving a corporate role. When did you first get your aspiration? And then that projection from other people that try to get you to sort of separate your spirituality and all those concepts that make you who you are from your business model. So let's start. First, welcome, Jill.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. So when did you first have the aspiration? So you're doing your corporate role. What were you doing?
So my background was in geophysics, but at the time, the role that I left was business manager for a big oil and gas company. And I'd had a few roles before that in strategy and culture change and leadership. But it's kind of been a bubbling brook of aspiration that's happened over time. There was actually, I can pinpoint a moment in time where I used to ride my bike to work every day along the river, and I just absolutely loved it. And I used to always kind of listen and set some intention around my day.
Love it.
And on this one particular day, the word possibility boomed out of the sky, and not really. It kind of
that's how it felt,
but it was a really how would I describe, unusual experience, and it was from that moment that I knew that I needed to explore that word and what it meant. So through my work, I incorporated a lot of the concepts that interested me, and I'm sure we'll get onto that. Neuroscience and psychology and this integration of science and spirituality.
Beautiful.
I used to really bring that into my role. I used to use the phrase that work was the canvas on which to do life. Like, it wasn't separate.
Oh, beautiful.
It wasn't a separate thing that we did. This whole idea of work-life balance to me was a bit irrelevant. I just used to go to work like I would be home, and so I would bring some of these concepts into work. So I think,
did it start spiritually and then you were interested in the science element? Did it start with science, or did it sort of emerge into your life with the interest in both equally?
That's a good question. I think my first introduction to the spiritual side of it was when I picked up a book 15 years ago on Buddhism. It was my first introduction to it. And then I had an experience, like a challenging life experience. I got stuck in Syria. I had back issues. I won't go into it because it was quite a long story, but it gave me the opportunity to put things right into practice around understanding that your thoughts create your reality.
It's an awakening moment, like out of the adversity, what are you going to draw on?
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
It was amazing. I just read the book and it was like, now here's your chance to put everything into practice. And what I did was I was in a very challenging situation, and I just lived literally moment to moment for a period of 12 hours. And then I got myself out of there. But it was like every moment it was like, I'm okay. I'd check in with myself, and I was in pain and there was stuff going on, but I was okay.
In each moment.
Moment. And the future, the very near term future, it didn't look like there could be a possibility of coming out of it, right? Because there was lots of things
Wow.
going wrong. And in every moment, I just kept practicing that, and it all worked out.
What made you draw on that? Were you naturally a positive person, or was it just that the memory of that book was so fresh in your mind?
I would say that I'm naturally a positive person. I hadn't really investigated the nature of my mind, though, in terms of how we cultivate reality through our thoughts. I hadn't practiced that at all. But I think it was just such a terrifying situation that I had to draw on something, and that's what I did. I mean, I grew up in a very moderate Christian family, the type that goes to church at Easter and Christmas, and so I didn't have any religious practice. Like I wouldn't say that I had a relationship with God.
Yeah, you weren't sort of imprinted in any way.
No, well, I did when I was very young, and I actually ditched it all very actively when I was 17 and kind of had my, I think a lot of people go through that process of going almost atheist. So, at that moment, it wasn't, oh, God help me. I wasn't into prayer, but it was just this realizing that I could talk myself through that situation.
Do you feel the threads of life? Do you look back going, I was so meant to have that book at that time in preparation for this moment? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And actually, sometimes people ask me, do I have any regrets studying geophysics, right? Because it seems to be such a counterintuitive subject for me to study, people who know me. And in fact, my favourite subjects at school were history and English literature. But I did geophysics for 17 years or 15 years, and I wouldn't change a thing because of all the experiences that it gave me. And now, being able to integrate this idea of science and spirituality, I have a natural affinity to speak in a scientific way, which tends to be the language of most people. I often say science is the new religion. It makes people feel safe. The
science almost sort of helps back up. Okay, I can run with this a little bit. For me, I didn't need that. My husband, loves it, because things we were talking about years ago now are revealing themselves through the channels for him that he believes are authorities in the world that he lives in and the language that he speaks, that it's sort of coming full circle, and spiritual concepts that I've talked about that I couldn't prove to him, he's now like, and he's like, talking it back to me, but with the fact base, with the science base, with the, I can grasp onto this now.
It's interesting though, isn't it, that your language that you're comfortable with is actually the ancient language of all the very old religions, and First Nations people all speak to that same language, this idea of inner knowing. They've got different words for it. And in fact, their concept, well, I know this for First Nations in Australia, they don't have such thing as a chief or a leader. In fact, it's a non-concept to them, because their reverence for somebody or level of respect is actually directly connected to somebody's level of inner knowing.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is cool. Very cool.
So different to how we live and work today in the whole business environment, where leadership is very hierarchical, and we value education and experience, whereas in those cultures it was quite the opposite.
I've had an experience, not to digress, but I've had an experience come to me with this magazine that they want me to be part of, and I have to answer these questions. And it's really interesting, because I know what I know because of my knowing directly, and I haven't been taught by books in the beginning or other mentors or courses or everything that I know was through my inner knowing and the application of that in life experience. And that once upon a time would have been seen as, what? You don't have a degree in this or some certificate up on the wall for it. I've got certificates for other things, but there's nowhere for me to go to get the certificate for this. Yes. I was born with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've read this book.
Yes.
You're in a bad situation.
Yeah. And look, the situation resolved through lots of little miracles, as it always does, and it would all turned out fine. But I think that was the beginning of my exploration into my own mind, and I took up meditation and yoga after that.
Yeah.
And it's just been a gradual path of realizing that there is no end to understanding yourself and who we really are.
Yeah.
But that sense of knowing is has just gotten stronger over time.
Because you're listening to it.
Yeah.
And you've got value in it. Like, even when you said that word that came, I can completely relate when you say, like, it came out, that because it comes from you, and it's like at times it is so powerful that it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
It's not always like that. I always feel it as a whole bodied experience, but I have had moments where it's sort of come out and enveloped me and been so precise and so loud.
Yeah.
That you can't, if you ignored it, you would just, nothing good would come from it.
No,
yeah.
Exactly. And I reckon that was before I even got into strategy, I think. So that would have been more than 5 years ago that I had that experience of possibility.
Yeah, but even energetically, Jill, when you talk about how you rode your bike and you were along the river, okay, because most people are like in a car on the freeway or in a bus, on the freeway, and then all the big buildings of being in the city or wherever you might be. And it actually contracts us energetically and it desensitizes us energetically, which is why I have to live with nature around me, in a lake, in the ocean, and be in amongst it, because I instantly feel, and it continues to tap me into and amplify the language of the world around me and the language of the inner knowing within me.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're doing that unconsciously, you are actually expanding your energy. You've got the water, the ride, the air, the space.
Yes.
So it doesn't surprise me that something like that would happen in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that ride. It's probably the one thing I miss about corporate, actually.
Yeah.
It's that ride in. I used to, on the way home, it was always that really nice integration piece to get home and show up for my kids in a way that I was attentive. But I often used to do this little exercise and sometimes I do it when I go to bed at night, where you just play your day on fast forward, really fast from the very beginning, and then you pause at the moments that kind of meant something to you.
Beautiful.
And what I noticed, and still do, is that all your pauses will be with people.
Yes.
And it's nothing grand. It's just like this, a couple of like a moment. It could be a smile with a stranger. Connection.
Yeah.
So it's that, or it is moments of peace where you're either usually in nature, right?
Still connection. Yeah.
And so after that, I then created some intentionality, and again, I still do.
Yeah.
Around knowing that that's what was important to me. That's what I valued. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, I'd ride to work and I'd play my day on fast forward before I get there, and
love that.
Prepare myself for those moments of connection and look for them, right? Because sometimes they pass you by and you miss them in the moment. It's not till afterwards.
It's a bit like the reticular activation system, which you'd know about. Do you know what I mean? And the minute you set it, suddenly it's there. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
I love that. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Starting the day.
Yeah. So I had a team of people, and occasionally, often every day, someone would just knock on my door unexpectedly in my team and say, "Oh, can I have a chat?" And I'll be like, oh, this is the moment.
Yeah.
This is it. And I'd be, in total receiving mode then, like ready to have that conversation that I was going to reflect on later that evening. So
I love that you are just receiving that. You're not building some other story. You're basically like, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be wonderful. This is going to be connection. This is going to be my pause moment.
Well, this is like I said, work is a canvas on which to do life.
Yes.
So that was my life,
Yes.
It was beautiful.
That's like deep level of appreciation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which to me is deeper than the gratitude.
Yeah.
Like there's an element of gratitude, but to me the appreciation, I think we talked about this, but it's like when you take it right in to your heart.
And I just got reminded of a conversation that you and I had at one of the first time we met, actually. And I was talking about work, and you sensed my sadness in leaving corporate. And I think the story that I just told is probably part of that sadness, because I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed working with the team and like the ride, everything about that. I loved my job. Yeah. Yeah,
beautiful. So how long when did the aspiration come to be in the position that you're in now, where you've taken that leap?
I took some time off work because I had a health diagnosis last year. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting just to see how work affects me physically? Yep. So I took the opportunity I think I took maybe 10 months off work. Wow. And they were really supportive, which was wonderful. But you know how it is when you step back, you get out of your context, what's familiar. And I just had this new perspective on life. And I knew that I had this real sense of wanting to share stuff. And not to change the world so much, but more to express myself. I wanted to use my voice somehow. And I came to this realization that, I do time traveling quite a lot. I was imagining myself on my deathbed, looking back again over my life and all the good moments. And I thought I would much rather be reflecting back and knowing that I had done something that was following my heart and failed. I'd rather have tried and failed
with the regret
than not done it at all. So that was kind of the impetus to, and then it took several months to build the courage to actually make that happen. Because, working in corporate, it's a very safe, comfortable place to be, and it's very, by society's standards, the right thing to do. I'm at my best income producing age right now. I had a great job, and in fact I loved my job. So by all in like society's perspective, it was like, what the hell are you doing, Jill? Like, why would you?
Was that calling or that aspiration there before you took the 10 months off?
Yes.
Isn't it interesting how we can have that sort of knowing and that sense, but again, because it happened to me in a role that then finished, and I thought I'll get a job really quickly. I always do. And I didn't for 10, 11 months. And everything changed. It was like a coming home to myself again of, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? A bit different. I didn't love my job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But again, that space was created for you to do a deeper listening.
Yeah. It was such a gift.
Yeah.
Such a gift, as they often are, these big life changes.
Yes. Yeah.
The concept that I talk about quite a lot is, our perception of reality, and I often use vision as an example, that what we see and perceive is not objective reality. Our senses don't passively transmit information to our brains. What goes through a filter, right? And that's all based on our evolutionary programming, cultural experiences, memories. And so basically we live in a, not in a bubble, but in this where we kind of have, we're reliving patterns, right? Through our programming. And it's very difficult to step out of that. And so in the context of future thinking, like how do you actually stop repeating your patterns? And there's only a few ways to kind of get out of your context. And one of them is to leave right? Which is what I did with my job. But another example of like hearing your context is like the classic example is traveling. You know, when you're overseas and you're immersed in another culture and another language, and then that moment of the first time that you hear your own accent and you're like, oh my God, is that what we sound like? So I think
so you're taken out of the norm of what's so familiar and get to view it in a different way.
And it gives you a whole different perspective and a whole different vantage point on which to create the future.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you've taken the leap and you've got your business model. What happened then?
So I think it sort of took some time to figure out what my business model will be. And to be honest, I don't think I'm finished either. I'm still exploring.
I think it continues to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you continue to grow and expand.
Yes.
So does your concept of how you express that.
Yeah. And I'm kind of holding space for possibility, right? That's been a big learning for me, is not attaching myself to any outcome.
Yeah.
You know, just actually doing heart-inspired action on any given moment.
Yep.
And the course correcting will take care of itself, basically. So yeah, my business model is at the moment is around providing I facilitate organizations. So this could be like small businesses or functional teams of large organizations or executive level board teams in developing strategy. And I guess the differentiating factor is that I weave in some of the concepts that we've already talked about, but I put a lot of emphasis on creating the conditions for future thinking and holding reverence for the act of doing strategy.
Yeah.
Because again, we separate business from life, but life, humans, business, we're all beautifully interconnected in every way.
Yeah.
With each other, with ourselves, with nature, and whatever happens in business has a ripple effect into the world. In fact, you could argue is a driving force for how the world looks today. So I try to bring in reverence to the moment of a group of individuals creating the future intentionally, because we are always creating the future. Back to the programming, the cultural evolutionary programs, where if we're not conscious about what we're creating or doing it with heart intention, then we'll be repeating the patterns of the past. And so this applies to every aspect of life. But I'm bringing it into business.
And you know what it needs to be? It absolutely needs to be. You can't, you've just talked about the intricacy of the connection of it all. So how could you leave a part of the thread out?
But we do, right?
Yeah.
That's the really fascinating thing, is that we have this whole work-life balance.
And how's it been working? Do you know, you look at the world and stress and, constant striving, and this is what's been missing from my perspective.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful that you've been sort of called, and through your experiences, and can speak these different languages and weave it and then take it back in to that environment to create change. And how well is it being received?
Yeah, good, really good. I mean, I'm still trying to define who my ideal customer is, to be honest. Because I've worked with one small organisations, but the other ones have been big organisations where I was kind of like, I'm not sure how this is going to land. They didn't seek me. This is through a subcontracting arrangement but I'm still free to, bring my own ideas. And it's been exceptionally well received, which again is surprising and delightful.
Yeah.
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 I think people are ready. I use the example of meditation. Like it's probably only 10 years ago that if people said they meditated, it was a bit out there, or a bit on the side. And now
that airy fairy stuff.
Yeah. But now people, men, women, it doesn't matter. You wouldn't hesitate to say in a business environment, I Yeah.
I meditate.
I meditate.
Yeah.
I do yoga or whatever it is. And so I just feel like it's time that there's receptiveness to.
And have you yourself been having to, I suppose, for lack of a better word, integrate these different elements of yourself into the oneness to go in and present that? Because I know you had an experience not dissimilar to mine. Mine was from a coach who's like, you're either leadership or you're spiritual. And I struggled with that because it's like I kept thinking, and I'd do a post and she'd go, so are you spiritual then? And I kept thinking, but it is leadership. It's leading ourselves from the inside out. It's everything that has changed and transformed my life and empowered it and made me consciously craft and create my results and my world. And I just thought, oh, this is a struggle because I ran my business for 20 years and then into management and, team building and all that sort of stuff. And then coming out of it, somewhere inside of me, I had created a division and I had to bring it back to show up authentically. And then there's that resonance.
Yeah. So this is where the courage comes in, right?
Yes.
Like it takes so much courage to realize that those well-intentioned comments or advice are coming from this I call it the sandbox. It's like the paradigm of thought that's actually boxed in about how we do things around here.
Yeah.
But the world needs us to step way out of that. And in fact, it's always refreshing, isn't it? Refreshing when you come across somebody who does do it differently, like just breaks the norm. I get really excited. I call this like being rebellious. Yeah. Where you just dress differently to how everybody else's dresses, or you communicate differently. Like we as human beings, we are really drawn to safety in our culture. Like we don't want to stand out. So similar to you, I had some well-intentioned advice. I shared this concept, pretty much the same as what I've shared today. And I was told that I'm going to need to create two businesses, one for this language and then one that's actually going to be, if I actually want to get some business, I'm going to have to like just talk their language. And I think this has been a huge learning. I've learned so much this year. It's like going to therapy to get starting your own business. It is. It is. Stop therapy. But I've learned that, continuing to check in with yourself and being true to your values and, resonance is important, right? And then it comes back to who are you pulling in, because you don't want everybody. Exactly. It's not about actually making money. I think success will come in anyone who can be really authentic in who they are and what they're actually offering, and people knowing deep down that there's somebody seeking that value right now. Yeah, beautifully said. And it's like almost, how would you deny somebody who actually wants your service? Yeah. Because there's 100 million people who do what I do in the conventional way. They don't want that. I don't want that. Yeah. That's where, to me, it's so important to listen to that inner knowing, though. And funnily, I did a post on that today in social media, that basically there can be really beautiful, well-intentioned people, coaches, mentors, just great individuals, but they put forward their agenda that stem from their, long-held, I call them false stories and beliefs and patterns, etc. And they mean really well, and we tend to then at times follow that and ignore ourselves because it's like, I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to fail. Yeah. But they're the moments to sit and go, is this really the right person, pathway, opportunity? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then listen to the knowing and don't make sense of it. Yeah, I had that recently. And I knew when I said, yes, I'll do this, I thought,
It didn't have that real resonance of the yes that I always get. And then I'm showing up going, oh, my God, I've done this. And I really felt like I'd already chosen where my focus now then needed to be, and it was taking time from it. And it kept niggling. And then I did am I making excuses? Am I sabotaging? And then woke up one morning really early, and it was like that inner knowing was going, stop doing it and go this way. And the minute I made that decision, it's like this heavy weight.
Yeah.
And that stress of going against the grain just faded away and came back to that knowing that no one knows better than my knowing. And at least I questioned, am I sabotaging? Am I coming up with excuses? Am I getting in my own way? And the voice inside of the knowing just got louder. No. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that voice does not conform, right? It doesn't conform to the paradigm of thought of the day.
Yeah.
That gets me really excited against this rebellion is actually following your heart.
Yeah. And do you feel more comfortable? I know you're still integrating and it's still growing and morphing, and hey, I've been doing this for a long time and I think it's going to continue to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think I'm on the journey. Like, to be honest, I think I have a long way to go to really authentically bring me and my brand to life. I think I'm probably still meeting business halfway.
Yeah.
But I know that's just a process that I have to go through. And you can't.
And there's not a rush.
No.
You know, like the old analogy, we see that you can't force the flower to grow, or there is actually a process to it.
Yes.
And it's that letting go and trusting the unfolding process of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much of my own growth. Like I said, it's like doing therapy every day, having your business. And I think, you know what, just on that, in terms of the decision to leave corporate and have my own business, I've completely succeeded because of the gifts that if I went back to work tomorrow, I've succeeded because the gifts that I've had in starting my own business has been.
You were courageous and you took what I call the quantum leap.
Yeah.
Because you've got children.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's always courageous. There's always something that we feel like, like the risk. But it's actually not.
No, it's actually one of my I'm part of a business group based in Canada, and they have a mindset call every week. And one of the coaches has this phrase that the safest place you can be is following your heart.
Absolutely.
And there's so many layers of truth to that. You know, we talk about courage and being authentic, but like you just said, the minute you make the decision or the call, you actually do feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel at home.
Yeah.
The more that I came back and went, but I am shaman, but I'm also coach, and I'm, to me, it's all the same. So you could say I'm a shamanic healer. I'm a coach. I'm into leadership. I'm in, life, but I'm really a guide.
Yeah.
And this is me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is my language. This is how I've done it. This is always finding ways to simplify it and, make sense of it for others in a really grounded way. But the more I am authentic to that, the more home I feel, the more at home I feel.
And maybe there is no language for what you are. That's the other thing, right?
There is not.
We forget the power of language in shaping our reality, that it has so much impact.
Yeah.
And, there might not be words yet for what you do or what I do.
Yeah.
So then it's...
But we need titles. I surrendered to that a long time ago. Do you know what I mean? Like I was like, shaman, no, or heal, no, this, no. And then it's like, but in this world,
you have to be...
That's needed. So what words do I use to go, well, that's sort of the closest that I can get.
Yes.
It was like a question on Facebook today about what's one sentence that describes what love is. And I just went, there is no word or sentence that can describe what love is.
Yeah. It's
because any of it would be a limitation.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
wouldn't be doing it justice.
Yeah.
I once came across a woman. She was a receptionist at a business, and she had on her title Director of Awesomeness.
Oh, love it.
I never forgot it.
Yeah.
Again, right?
Love
Isn't that interesting? She just created this amazing point of difference, and that was 15 years ago, and I still remember. So having the courage to step outside these norms is so exciting.
Yeah. So what gem, pearl of wisdom do you want to leave for the listeners?
I think it's around our perception of reality, that remembering what it means to be human in both the sense of our limitations in how we construct reality through our experiences, programs, and all that. So it's, we get caught up in the limitations, but what it actually means is that on the other side of that is infinite possibility. And so if you can understand that and embrace that, then it means that there's infinite possibilities into the future. And all you need to do is ground yourself, listen to your heart, and then move forward with action. And this applies to anything, but like I said, I apply it to business. That's what the world needs more than anything. And that's what I think everybody's is.
Well, the business of life or the business of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often I write things in the perspective of business, but everything is applicable to personal life as well. So, in fact, I gave a talk at UWA on Friday. It was the UWA Business MBA Business School. And it was on business, right? And then one of the people afterwards came up to me and said, "Oh, you should be a life coach. Like, I'd love to have somebody talk me through all the things that you discussed." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it all applies."
Yeah. Is it spiritual or is it physical? Or is it that spiritual's driving our physical actions and choices?
Well,
so they're one and the same.
I was going to say, it's just even that it's like the love question. Even that question doesn't even do it justice, does it? Because it's a dual way of thinking about our world that is deep down. That's not how our world actually is. Well, not even deep down. We know from quantum that's not the case. So,
and someone that's having that aspiration, like you had, what do you want to say to that?
Oh, listen, I think my suggestion to anyone who's got that feeling, that sense that maybe there's something else or something different, is to do anything you can to zoom out.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So it could be changing industries, leaving your job, having some time away from work, changing your circle of people that you're hanging out with. Someone who's really going to challenge the paradigm of where you're currently thinking or trapped potentially, and break out, because otherwise we're going to keep repeating the patterns of the world. And look at the world. It's time for people to really step into, have courage, and follow the heart. I think that's a great word to finish on, but break out. Do you know what? Just break out. Yeah. Jill, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to leave your website at the bottom of the podcast, because you just never know who's listening that goes, okay, we need that. Or even just a coffee.
Or even just a coffee or a virtual coffee catch-up or anything. But thank you so much for coming and being so open and authentic and sharing a very small snippet of what I'm sure is your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Join me on my next episode. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe by clicking on the plus button if you're on Apple, or like and follow on Spotify, rate and review. And please share Inner Voice of Knowing with your friends.